Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer of this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Today, we are going to go over two things, which is one, Venus and Capricorn squaring the nodes, and two, this upcoming full moon in Taurus, which Venus will be squaring the nodes during this full moon. And the ruler of the full moon is going to be this Venus. This is also happening when Saturn is stationing direct. So there's a lot to unpack with the full moon. Before I dive into this forecast, I wanted to make a quick mention that if you are a Scorpio and you have yet to book a birthday special, you have about a week left to get it booked. It just needs to be booked by the 20th. I don't know how much room I have left for the over the next week to book. There might be a couple of spots there. But you can book it for a time after the 20th, but as long as it's booked by the 20th, you will get your birthday special. And if you want to know more about that, you can look at what that entails on my website. Is only $75. So it is a discount of about $50 to go over your natal chart and your solar return. And then it's going to switch over to Sages, and I'm excited about that. The other thing that I wanted to say is I made the announcement on my last video. And I will post a link below where I go over this, but I am doing my Asteroid Goddess series. It's 5 classes. They're every other week on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Time, starting December 7th. And the final class will be February 1st. Again, it's every other week. And each class will have 2 asteroid goddesses, and they will be 90 minutes long. I will go over the myth, the archetype, and give chart examples for you. They will be non-student chart examples. They will be either my own clients that have given permission, or they will be well-known people to the public. So I'm really excited about that. The outline of the goddesses that I'm going over is on my website. And of course, the live class will be recorded, and if you sign up, you will be able to get that recording. You can either pay for the whole entire series, which is $135 for 5 classes, or you can pay for, a drop-in fee for any class that you want, and those are $35 a piece. I am really excited about this. As most of you know, I absolutely love working with asteroids. Those and planetary nodes are like my favorite thing in astrology. So I'm really excited that I did the poll on this YouTube channel to be able to see what you guys wanted to learn next in a class series. I am really excited to see those of you who participate. And if you miss it, you can always pay for the recording later on for $35. I don't mind at all. And my Cassandra lecture that I did for the Evolutionary Astrology Conference is now on my website as well for purchase. I am old school. I haven't figured out a good plugin for my website to automatically purchase these things. I've tried different things and it gets confusing. So if you want to purchase one of those classes or the whole entire class series, all you have to do is email me and tell me what you're wanting to purchase, and I will send a PayPal invoice so you have that receipt of purchase, and then I will send you the link or links to the classes, and I'm really, really excited for this. And tell your friends about it, because I think that this is going to be really fun, especially if you are just excited about asteroids, you want to know more about the myth or the archetype of each of these. And yeah, there's that. So without further ado, let us talk a bit about the archetype of Venus and Capricorn first before I share the chart for the full moon. So, Venus in the sign of Capricorn, as you all know, you've heard me talk. You are all smart cookies. And if it's your first time hearing me talk, well, you're about to hear it. Venus is dealing, it has, when you're synthesizing planets, if they are a, a ruler of two signs, you'll have to pull in what those signs are meaning. Um, and Venus in transit is definitely dealing with the Taurus dynamic. It's the co-ruler of Taurus, and it is dealing with your inner relationship to self and what your own personal values are and what your relational needs are. Each one of us have different relational needs. And sometimes whenever we meet someone, they work really well together. And sometimes when we meet someone, they don't work very well together. And the outer expression of someone else's needs is that Libran dynamic. Venus is also pulling in the psychology of listening. And through the Taurus expression, it is about our ability to inwardly listen to ourselves. How many times have we not inwardly listened to ourselves? And there's a lot of us who are really good at that. I, for one, am Taurus rising with a Libra moon, and my Venus is in Sagittarius. And so I've had to really learn to trust my intuition and my own inner voice and to pay attention to that inner voice and my inner hearing. That's been part of my own evolutionary journey, is recovering that about myself. Um, and then the outer expression of the psychology of listening is Libra, a Libra moon here. So I tend to be really good at listening to other people and being diplomatic and, can play, I guess, devil's advocate a bit. I could see both sides. That is a Libran dynamic. Um, and so if you're someone who has a lot of Libra, you could be a really good listener, or that could be something where you're needing to learn how to be a good listener. Same with if you have a lot of Taurus in your chart, something I often see is that is someone who absolutely can listen to themselves, but they're needing, especially if they don't have a lot of Libran dynamics or something, they're needing to learn how to be able to hear where another is coming from. And so it's pulling in that dynamic of trying to get the frog out of the well, which is a Taurus thing. Um, so it's really fascinating to look at individual charts to understand that. Libra is also others' projected expectations. I mean, this is why that South lunar node is in Libra. It's highlighting these extremes of um, how are you in your relationships with others, whether it be friends or family? Do people around you have the ability to hear where you're coming from, or are they stuck more in fixed energy, like Taurus, and only want to hear it through their perspective? Vice versa, it could be the other dynamic. And so these are very much lessons that we have all been trying to understand for almost a year and a half now, or it has been a year and a half. And so really highlighting our expectations versus another's, our needs versus another needs. And so when we bring in the Capricorn archetype to Venus, we're looking at how we're structuring our relationships. Capricorn is about the structure of anything. It also really highlights this dynamic. There's always a natural expression and a distorted expression. A lot of people who have Venus and Capricorn, I find, have grown up in very oppressive environments where they're not always, but the majority of the time, their parents are very strict. Authoritarian is something that comes to mind with Capricorn. And so they don't have the ability necessarily to hear where their child is coming from. And so there can be, with the person who has a Venus in Capricorn, a suppression of their inner listening and giving their authority over to other authority figures, because that is how they have been conditioned. Capricorn. So Capricorn is dealing with our conditioning, our religious conditioning, our family conditioning, our social conditioning, our cultural conditioning, and how that impacts our relationships. Venus in Capricorn. And we're really called right now with Venus and Capricorn being ruled by Saturn and Pisces to dissolve these old barriers or structures and to really reclaim our own sense of personal authority in our relationships. Meaning that we can make correct judgment calls. Capricorn can be very judgmental, but when it's naturally expressed, it has the ability to make correct judgment through self-reflecting. So with this Venus and Capricorn transit, we're really understanding the dynamics of what structures are needing to be dissolved, what is needing to be restructured in our relationship to self, with our relationships to others, with others. It's about discerning correct judgment through inwardly reflecting and getting to the emotional root of what is going on in our lives right now, and to hold ourselves accountable and responsible for our choices that we have made. I also find that this is an interesting dynamic with Venus and Capricorn right now, is Capricorn so much is about self-reflecting, even on the past, in order to gain wisdom. But with Venus and Capricorn squaring the nodal axis right now, the resolution node is that south node in Libra, which Venus and Capricorn is ruling. And when you look at the chart for the full moon, which I'm about to show you, it really gives a lot of insight into this dynamic of how we are really called to understand what's in front of us right now. And I'm just going to show this chart and jump right into this dynamic that I'm wanting to speak about. So here is the moon, and it is conjunct in a balsamic conjunction to Uranus retrograde. Venus is in the 6th house, and it is squaring the nodal axis, with the resolution being the south node in Libra in the 3rd house. And Pluto is in the 6th house as well. And Pluto, Ceres, and Venus are all ruled by Saturn, stationing direct in Pisces in the 8th house. Before I jump into some of the other dynamics, I'm going to stop this and I'll bring it back up. Let me just speak a little bit about how Venus in the 6th house of this chart squaring that nodal axis, with the resolution node being the south node in Libra in the 3rd, is really about self-improving upon what is right in front of us. The 6th house is about putting one foot in front of the next and not having to dig into the why of it all from the past. So there is this huge call right now to really hold oneself accountable for the present moment and to structure life in these dynamics. I think anyone who has a lot of Capricorn, as long as they're not repressing, they will often be trying to look at the why, the bottom line of what is going on in their life. And oftentimes they're reflecting so much in the past that they are not being rooted in the present moment. And what tends to happen is they will project those prior dynamics onto the present moment and stay in this loop. And this full moon is really highlighting this, with not only the moon ruled by this Venus in the 6th house squaring the nodes, but also the moon is in a balsamic conjunction to Uranus. So there is a massive amount of liberation that is wanting to come through for an emotional transformation of the inner relationship to self. And with Venus being the facilitator of the moon and Uranus and being held within the sixth house of this chart, it's really saying to pay attention to the present moment and what's here right now. What are the things that you can do right now in order to adapt to what is going on in your own life and in the collective? So it is really about internalizing this information, yes, of the past, but that South Node in the third house is also, let's share this. That South Node in the third house is also being conditioned by Virgo. So it's pulling in this repeating signature of Virgo because the sixth house is a natural Virgo house. And that means that the ruler that is conditioning the South Node, Virgo's ruler, is Mercury and Sagittarius, which is also well, that was wonky, opposing Jupiter in the 11th house retrograde, which is in mutual reception with Mercury. So what is this speaking to? This is speaking to the ability to stay in the present moment, to ground Taurus, Capricorn in the present moment, and to put one foot in front of the other with the things that are being confronted right now, as a way to liberate from the learned knowledge, guilt, beliefs of the past that are impacting these areas in our life, and to have this full-on transformation of our inner relationship to self, thus being our own authority. The sun, which is opposing the moon, is in Scorpio, and it is in the fourth house, a water house. And that's a water sign. Saturn, the ruler of Venus and Pluto, is seated within the eighth house and Pisces stationing. That is a water house, and it is also in a water sign. This full moon is going to feel a bit like eclipse energy, with Saturn stationing Pluto at the anaretic degree and Venus squaring the nodal axis. So the way through all of this is to confront what is going on inside of us right now through a scorpionic dynamic of understanding the emotions of the present moment that are connected to, and that's the sun in the fourth house and Scorpio, connected to our feelings, Taurus, as a way to throw off old dynamics in order for this transformative process to occur further. And Saturn in the eighth house is wanting us to confront our ideals, how we've structured life around certain ideals that have been conditioned or learned. And that, again, is further emphasized with that South Node in Libra in the third house. The learning that's gone on up until this point, but it is about confronting it in the present moment, not getting stuck so much in the why of the past, but understanding that we've brought the past forward, and the work that we are meant to do right now as a way to take Capricornian accountability and responsibility to fortify our Taurus in our relationship to self is through taking the action and the steps that we can right now to adapt to our situations. And that is the way to heal Saturn and Pisces, to surrender to what is occurring, and to not control. The Capricorn Venus can want to control, and it is ruled by Saturn and Pisces in the eighth house. So it's having us confront where we can't surrender to the truth of what might be occurring in our lives, or the total truth of our reality. And so again, it's emphasizing this dynamic of needing to be able to really ground in the present moment and just confront what is right in front of you. And when I mean confront, that doesn't mean necessarily to have confrontations. It means that we are not resisting looking at what is going on right now and what has led us to these situations right now. And it is all about staying present. And then with Mercury in Sag in its shadow period, but in that fifth house, we are really called to self-actualize through diving into our intuitive function. And through that intuition, we get to learn more about our personal truths that have nothing to deal with the internalized messages or beliefs that have perpetuated trauma or a destabilizing function within our lives. And that's also seen with Jupiter retrograde opposing that Mercury in mutual reception. There's this, and it's in the 11th house. So there's this acceleration of our evolution through liberating from old beliefs that might have been ideals, not rooted in the truth. Saturn in Pisces, because this is squaring that Saturn in Pisces. It's in a T square. So we're really called to look at our thinking in the present moment and where we might be holding on to a belief, and where whenever we feel confronted even by other people and what their beliefs are, is to surrender to the fact that there is a naturally occurring law, Sagittarius, that is that the truth is relative. What might be true for me might not be true for you. Where we get hung up and we don't have the ability to hear where another one is coming from, South Node in Libra, is when we are holding on so tightly to our beliefs that it's impeding upon having natural and authentic intimacy with others. And so this is an area that we're needing to improve upon, especially in the collective and for some of us personally. I know for me, I have been, interestingly enough, been dealing with this in my own personal life, not necessarily with family, but in other areas where I am having to have boundaries with people whenever I'm being confronted with a belief or a projected expectation. It's something I've been seeing the last 3 weeks in my life, that I want to say, with the energy of Pluto and Venus in the sixth house, and with Virgo conditioning that south node for this full moon, it can be where we're feeling a bit drained or tired. Like, okay, I've been doing this work. Why does this keep coming up? Like, I'm so over it. Like, I feel like I've shown this. I've passed these evolutionary tests. What is going on? Well, it's Pluto in Capricorn at the 29th degree that's really helping us show to ourselves that we have this Capricornian self-determination and self-control to continue to do the work, even when we feel like it's done and over with. So this full moon can be bringing up things for each of us individually and collectively that we thought we were done with. I think we're already feeling this collectively. Mars is in Leo in the 12th house of that chart. And it is still in an opposition to Pluto in Capricorn. And we really are called to dissolve these old patterns that are rooted in exclusionary behaviors where it becomes divisive. That's part of that South Node in Libra as well. We're really called collectively to restructure Saturn and Pisces through correct judgment around those laws of giving, sharing, and inclusion. But right now we're at this apex. And I want to mention for all of us on collective levels that, I mean, I've seen this even in the astrology community lately, the inability to hear where another is coming from, because it's like this Mercury and Sag dynamic of like, this is true, this is my belief, and how dare you confront me, because it's bringing up Capricornian judgment and sixth house shame and guilt. That typically has been learned and it's not natural. So whenever we're having these conversations with other people or we're seeing it play out, I want us to think about how and objectify the moon conjunct Uranus, objectification, about how a lot of the triggers of our anger, Mars, especially in Leo, can be rooted in I don't feel heard, seen, or understood for who I am in a unique way. And with that South Node in Libra, it's teaching us that sometimes people aren't going to have the ability to hear where we're coming from, but that actually gives us feedback to make different choices. And that's whenever Venus and Capricorn squaring that South Node comes into play. We can make a correct judgment call and to be in integrity about how to handle this. We don't want to permit more judgment, but we can confront things with integrity, sometimes by just being a Leo mirror to others. And with Venus and Capricorn, it's about being a natural role model through mirroring that to others. That's also Pluto. Um, the other dynamic with Venus and Capricorn ruling this full moon that is balsamic to Uranus, and with Mars and Leo still technically opposing Pluto and Capricorn, is we could be really called to self-actualize through doing work that is more inclusive and that could benefit our community. And that can actually bring forth a transformative experience, that Uranus moon conjunction, to our inner relationship to self, because it could be where in a time where we're needing to bring and cultivate community, that's what it could be doing. It can also reflect a time where you might have to be a group of one if necessary. But we're really being called to liberate from hermiting, like a Taurus. We're really being called to step outside of the structures we find ourselves in to do the work. And as we do that, it pulls in Pluto and Venus in that sixth house. It helps us to self-improve. Sometimes we can only do so much work on an internal level with our inner relationship to self, and it reaches a limitation. In order for more understanding of our unique individuality, Leo, this Leonian function, we have to step outside of our little well, our Taurus well, or our home, our shelter, and we have to initiate conversations around truth, honesty, and authenticity, Mercury and Sag, in order to see that there is unity and diversity. And for us to have that Libra-like comparison of, oh, that's how you are, and this is how I am. And that helps us to understand our unique individuality and the natural law of relativity. It also helps us to self-improve upon our inner relationship to self. And the key is to listen to when it is time to go out and foster more community, and then making sure that we're taking time for ourselves in order to integrate what we've been learning about ourselves through that contrasting, through being around others. This full moon is really reflecting this and symbolizing that things have reached certain limitations and that we're needing to improve through this restructuring that's wanting to occur in these types of ways. Let's take a peek some more at this chart so I make sure I'm not missing anything here. I also want us to know that Mars in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, obviously opposing this moon, is also trine to the North Node in Aries. And so as we are culminating long ending cycles around beliefs, ninth house, we are really called to get to the bottom of what are our emotional and psychological dynamics are. Saturn, that are unique and individualistic. This is also technically trining the sun. That are unique and individualistic, and to put it out there as a way to cultivate new patterns of awareness and new patterns of action in life to continue to further our evolutionary growth. Venus and Mars are in conjunct, and this is an inconjunct that really reflects the dynamic of self-improvement. In order for Capricornian restructuring to occur, we have to self-actualize by continuing to do this Plutonian shadow work, but to really do it in the present moment. As things come up, to not dwell so much on the past, but to ground into the present moment in order to confront these patterns. And then to self-actualize through getting to this bottom line so the restructuring can occur. So we are at an all-time high on collective energies, and with Mars in that 12th house of this chart, I just want you to know that this is you guys are, we're already feeling the energy of the collective. That Mars in the 12th house, or anyone who has Mars in the 12th house in general, can be very sensitive to the collective energy. I know for me personally, I have been experiencing massive amounts of vertigo. And I kind of feel like that's how the collective feels right now. It's like so imbalanced. And I want you all to also understand with these energies for the collective, with Libra, it takes an extreme to counteract an extreme. I want us to just think about our own individual lives when we're learning something and we get confronted with, oh God, this isn't sitting well with me. We tend to overcorrect as a way to counteract, and it takes a while of back and forth in order to recenter and to stabilize. And so we are in this time period of the pendulum is swinging in order for hopefully the collective to recenter at some point. And that's really much more about being rooted in natural laws that are timeless and inclusive. Okay. So this is your forecast. I'm sure I'm going to be speaking more about this later on this week. I know I'm doing the Moon series tomorrow, so that'll be on the EA Zoom channel with a lovely panel. I do not want to forget, though, that Ceres is balsamic to Pluto. Ceres is at 22 degrees Capricorn right now. And Ceres is about, in a very general sense, is the great mother that is very much about helping us to recover the most undistorted, natural, timeless, instinctual parts of ourself. And she is in that 6th house, really beckoning for us to restructure, being ruled by Saturn and Pisces, stationing. So there can be things that we are being tested in a Capricornian-like way with throughout the next week and leading up to this full moon, of where we have to truly remember that we don't have to be who we once were, collectively and in the present moment, individually. And that is a way that we cultivate healthier Taurus self-esteem, is by making those correct judgments and nurturing that natural, timeless principle within ourselves that we are always our own authority. The last thing I want to say with the Virgo energy being pulled in is that, especially with Venus squaring the nodal axis, is that there, for some, can be a lesson in remembering that you are already whole unto yourself and that you need no one to complete you, to be your own authority. Naturally, one knows that they are already complete and whole unto themselves without any other person. So this is your forecast. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you all are I know that I am like so ready for this weekend. I've taken off so I can just kind of disengage and do Taurus and reconnect with myself. Because the energy of the collective is very heightened right now. Um, Even places that I have felt were safe have been very volatile. And I really want to make sure that even me moving forward, I can make or continue to make correct choices and judgment calls and to have that discernment within that. Um, so I will be disengaging for the weekend and spending time with my family, very Venus and Capricorn, for the time being this weekend. That way I feel refreshed next week and I can continue to do the work, right? I will be doing work over the weekend, but in an internal Virgo-like way. Anyway, give yourselves grace, take care of yourselves. This is a time for self-care. Um, Saturn in that eighth house, we should be taking Epsom salt baths and making sure that we're taking magnesium to detoxify right now, especially energies, to do ritual, and to connect more. And Mercury and Sag opposing Jupiter and Gemini retrograde. I say this often, but I had a lot of insights last night while I was journaling, just even about myself and confronting my own stuff. So this is, if that's beneficial to others, this would be a great time to do that because the intuition can really glean a lot of answers that are rooted in truth for each one of us individually. So I'm looking forward to those who sign up for this Goddess Asteroid class series, and I also look forward to seeing more of you in my office, Zoom room, whatever, and reading your charts and helping you in the best way that I can. I love you all, and I will see you soon.